That's not what happened at all. What happened at all in ceremony 3 was I played with my son. And this feels like a real Drake moment here because, so ladies and gentlemen, today I'm filming a highly, highly requested video. You are going to get a very raw, very just open insight into the experience that I had, my psyche, where I'm at in life, and a lot of other things. I feel as though I'm pretty transparent on this YouTube channel. You guys know me pretty well, and you guys know me not only very well, but for such a long time. You know, people still find it very amusing that they can look back on my YouTube channel 5 years ago, where I was just trying to make a name for myself. I was trying to make a living. I was finding my feet, which to be honest is 5 years later what I'm still trying to do. But nonetheless, my point is, yes, although I make videos about finances, success in business, especially in the realm of having an agency. Yes, I make videos about biohacking. Yes, I make videos about sales, advertising, etc., etc. Through all my videos thus far, you guys still have gotten to know quite a bit of my personality, my background, but we're gonna go even further today. Now, what I'm talking about here is my ayahuasca experience. Now, I'll kind of tell you how I got to this place. Now, Q4 of 2019 was just ridiculous. I had the launch of Agency Incubator, I had the Grow Your Agency Party, I had the Gadzhi clothing line launch. From there, I had like 2 days to move everything out of my house. I decided not to renew the lease on my place in London. And then I went on a 2-week trip to Nepal with the team to visit the schools that we built out there. So all of Q4 2019, once the craziness is over, it culminates in me heading out to Mexico for a 7-day ayahuasca retreat. Now, the company that runs this ayahuasca retreat, what I liked about them is every single person there was a successful founder, a successful business owner. A lot of people there had sold their companies and were in, quite frankly, the hundreds of millions, billions. You get a lot of elite people coming through those retreats. And for me, that really did help. You know, I'm 80% very tactical, very business-like, as you guys know. And the other 20% of me has a foot in the spiritual world. But like, if I went to some sort of retreat where they start talking about like archangels and how literally like you just manifest everything, like all you have to do is just sit on a rock and manifest it, I think I would just get very, very agitated. So this was a good retreat to go on. The group there was incredible, especially because I was actually there with one of my clients. Now, to get to this retreat, you have to be referred. And one of those clients, actually maybe a month after we first started working together, they had just gone on their first retreat of this kind with this company. And like, I'm just gonna be entirely honest, and you know, my client that's watching this, we've joked about this. I thought they were fucking crazy. Like, I thought they were like lunatic. Like some of the ways they were talking, I was like, fuck no, am I going on? Or I was super down for ayahuasca retreat, but I was really hoping that I wouldn't come back some sort of like airy fairy like pixie. And you know, later I found out that that's just kind of one of the byproducts of going on ayahuasca retreat. You kind of come back. And for the next, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you feel very spiritually elevated. In the same way, you might go to a business mastermind, and for the next 2, 4, 6 weeks, that area of your life takes over everything else. So as I said, the group there was incredible. We all landed at the airport at different times. There was a group around 30, 40 of us, and we head out to this retreat. Now this retreat, the accommodation was very, very nice. It was just kind of this spiritual campus, and we basically had the entire thing booked out. Now, the way that it worked was there was the compulsory workshops. So learning about the medicine, its effects, kind of a bit about what you can expect from the journey, etc., etc. So those were mandatory. Then there were the ceremonies itself, and the first one, technically, I don't even think it was mandatory. That night had the first ceremony. Then precisely 24 hours later, we had the second ceremony. And then I think 36 hours later, we actually had a day one, we had the third ceremony. So there were some mandatory exercises, there were the ceremonies itself, and then there was also some other really fun activities, a lot of stuff on breath work, biohacking. They had a lot of coaches, and there was a lot of support there, which is really, really awesome to see. So that was kind of just the layout of it. I did 3 ceremonies in roughly around 3.5 days. So let's not be around the bush. Let me explain exactly what happened and how I'm spiritual. No, I'm joking. How I'm spiritually enlightened now. So I have a bunch of notes on my phone. So just a heads up, I will be referring back to this. Now, one of the things that you do going into ceremony you should try to do is set some form of intention. Because the thing is, and by the way, I'm going to use terminology that we used while we were out there. So for those of you guys who aren't familiar with ayahuasca, once again, I apologize if this is like weird spiritual jargon for you, but ceremony, which basically means, when we have the ayahuasca, self-explanatory. Medicine, which means the ayahuasca itself, and mother ayahuasca, which, how do I explain mother ayahuasca? Mother ayahuasca is really just the essence of your experience. So I don't know, it's a hard thing to explain. Now, a lot of people actually see mother ayahuasca as a physical person during their ceremonies. And for other people, it's just this overarching thing. It's sort of, mother ayahuasca is sort of the rudder of your experience. So they say that for your ceremonies, it's best to set an intention. Now, this is kind of where I was scratching my head, because my main thing was you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of you guys know that I've been meditating from the age of 14. Literally at the age of 14, in the same way you have a workout split in the gym, which I had, I also had a workout or a meditation split. So, I'd be doing everything from Vipassana to Kundalini meditation, etc., etc. So, for me, I've never really had too many mental blocks I've never really felt like I've had too many demons I've been battling with. So for me, it was more just like, I don't know what I don't know. And one thing that I will say, considering the childhood that I've had, every single one of my friends does not, and to be honest, myself included, does not understand how I don't have some very, very, very deep psychological and mental health issues. I'm shocked that I don't have very deep mental health issues. Considering what I went through and what I saw growing up, I really, to be quite frank, I should be really fucked up right now. So I knew that there must be some stuff very deep down that that I'm not aware of, that you can't just reach through meditation. You need something where the level of your consciousness is so expanded that you can see stuff that wasn't there before. So that was kind of my intention, but I guess that's not really a clear intention. My intention is like, I don't have an intention. And once again, although I didn't have an intention, there was some sort of stuff that I didn't really, it wasn't a burning sensation to know. I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe these are some intentions that I might set. So one was, how can I bring more love into my life? Number two, how can I bring more joy into my life? Number three, why do I believe that I can't be happy and also be very successful? And once again, all of these, I have quite a good amount of joy in my life. I have a good amount of love in my life. And once again, I am happy and I have achieved a lot. So yeah, these are kind of more loose questions that, I thought might be interesting tapping into. But the other thing that we talked about was attachments. Now, for me, those three attachments were really status, my feeling of self-worth based on accomplishments in my life. That's definitely something that I'm attached to, or it's definitely something that I think about. Money, and for me, it's really just the ability to pay for anything, anytime. For me, that comes down to being the breadwinner and being the provider. And number three, contribution. What contribution actually looks like, what form it comes in. Because for me, contribution, or at least the way that I see it, contribution has always been you go and you hunt and you push yourself, and then you share your spoils, you share your winnings with others. Whereas there's a lot of people out there, for example, I see people who have dedicated their entire life to charity work. And that's quite different from sort of philanthropy. And I've always looked at it, I'm like, why don't you work on yourself? Why don't you go secure the bag? Why don't you go ahead and make all this money? And then, if you're really trying to be such a good person, just donate all of it then. So as I said, that was kind of one thing that I was attached to, was this idea that my form of contribution has to be a certain way. So it is the night of the first ceremony. And very, very cool. Big shout out to my client. You know who you are. He knew, it's so funny because he's exactly like me in a lot of senses. He knew that I would come to this retreat dressed the way that I was dressed, which is a little bit bougie, having that London flair. And he's exactly the same. He's one of my clients out in Germany. So he brought me a outfit for ceremony, and he actually brought it from Bali. Because if it wasn't for him, to be honest, I was going to sleep in my, and like I hate myself for saying this, but I was gonna sleep in, you know, the pajamas that they give you on like Emirates like first class flights. Like I was gonna sleep in one of those. That's the only thing that I brought along that was white. So when you're in ceremony, which I didn't know this, or I didn't think about this, you're meant to wear white. So yeah, big shout out to my client, because I was about to look like a total fucking douchebag. We all head to our, our little rooms, tents. Like it was like a super, like, it was very like upscale, fancy tents, except they weren't really tent. They were like, I don't even know what to call them. But point is, we head to our rooms. We have a couple of hours just to set our intentions, journal, stuff like that. And then once the clock strikes 7:30, I believe, that's when we went into first ceremony. So from where my room was, from where my little studio was, it was like a 10-minute walk to the main hall where we did the ceremony. And I'm not gonna lie, I felt so cultish. Like it was very funny when you actually sat there and you like looked around, it's just like everyone dressed in white, candles, like it was very, very cultish. Like I loved it. So we get there, we've all set our intentions. And basically the way it works is you have this, this yoga mat and then blankets. You have a bucket to purge, and purge basically means, well, here's the thing. You can purge in many ways, and purging can involve throwing up, which is kind of the most common. Throwing up, it can involve burping, it can involve yawning. And when they told me that like yawning could be a form of purging, I didn't believe it until it happened to me, but we'll get onto that. So yeah, you have your bucket to purge, and there's a couple spare bits and bobs here and there, and you have a neighbor to the left, a neighbor to the right. And for me, I was like, this is either really nerve-wracking or a total blessing, because I actually had the founder of this entire retreat to my right. Very successful dude, but also like one of the most spiritually sound people you'll ever meet in their entire life. And on my left, I had pretty much the general manager of this retreat. So it's like, I pretty much had the best seat in the house, but that was almost kind of like a little nerve-wracking. So anyways, we all go around the room, we set our intentions, and then they start offering the first glass of ayahuasca. And ayahuasca is approximately like, it's kind of like a very large shot glass. And it's funny because my client was telling me, he's like, oh my God, I hate the taste of ayahuasca, because he's done quite a few ceremonies. And I had that first glass and I was like, I don't know what walnut juice would taste like, but it tasted what I thought walnut juice would taste like. To be honest, it tasted almost kind of good. But as I'm thinking about it now, I'm literally starting to feel sick. So I head back to my mat and I just sit in lotus position and I start meditating, and maybe 30, 40 minutes go by. And one thing I probably should have mentioned here is I started meditating religiously from the age of 14. I think I had LSD for the first time when I was like 15, I believe. Sorry, Mom. Like I definitely was not an easy kid to raise, but either 15 or 16, but definitely 16 at the latest. And I think I had shrooms for the first time when I was 17. And I've done LSD maybe like 7 or 8 times. I've done shrooms like twice, 2 or 3 times. So yeah, I've had my experience with psychedelics. So this wasn't, for some people going into it, this was their first, not only psychedelic experience, but their first experience with any form of quote unquote drug or mind altering substance. So like, I don't even want to know what they must have felt like. Because for me, it was just like, it was like a more intense LSD. Like the difference for me between like LSD is like you're seeing the same thing, sort of 3 of them. With shrooms, everything's a little more earthy. I don't know how to describe it. And with ayahuasca, it's crazy because you're seeing these patterns. It's almost like you're seeing the patterns that are made when it comes to carpentry. Like it's kind of hard to describe. But anyways, that onsets after like 30, 40 minutes. And I'm like, okay, cool. Awesome. It's happening. So at this point, I go from lotus position and I lie down, I close my eyes, and I fall asleep. Like literally, I fall asleep, and I think I must have been asleep for maybe like 2 or 3 hours, and that's not a very normal thing. That's not meant to happen. So I fall asleep, and I wake up just as they're calling the second round. So you're always offered 2 rounds or 2 chances of having the medicine. So I open my eyes literally right as they're offering the second round, so I'm like, okay, all right. So I go up, I have my second round, I sit back down, and once again, not much really happens, to be honest. That first ceremony was just very anticlimactic. And then they offer something called rapé, which is basically it's just tobacco that's like blown into your nostrils. And like you have rapé, and it's like genuinely the biggest burning sensation you will ever experience in your entire life. And they always say, you have to not fight it, because if you resist it, then it just hurts even more. And that's kind of like ayahuasca. If you resist it, then Mother Ayahuasca is going to make things more difficult with you. The whole point of ayahuasca is about surrendering so you can get the lessons that are meant to be given to you. So I have this rapé thing, and I sit down, and I'm not gonna lie, the ayahuasca did absolutely nothing for me that first ceremony, but the rapé, it was like the best 10 seconds of meditation I've ever had, extended over 60 minutes. So it was just pure clarity. So this is where, from the first ceremony, I got some nuggets, I got some value. Now, there's a couple people, or a couple things I wrote down. And the first one was hold no judgments or preconceptions. Now, that was a very, very important lesson for me, because I'm a person who is really not judgmental when it comes to if someone's straight, gay, if someone wants to become a billionaire, or if someone wants to work in McDonald's all day and then the rest of their time they just want to like smoke pot and get drunk with their friends, but they're genuinely from the bottom of their hearts happy. Like if you're happy, like honestly, if you're happy, you're not hurting anyone, I honestly couldn't care less what you do. I'm not a very judgmental person when it comes to things like that. Yet, it was crazy because I actually had, and I don't want to mention specifics here, but when I got to the retreat, there was one specific person where they started talking to me, and in my head I was just like, this person is just so, like, it's just like, it was a little too much for me to handle, like so airy-fairy. Like I just really didn't connect with that person because it just felt like they were so stuck in like La La Land, and it just felt like they were so, in my head, this person, was pretty young, and they were talking to me, and I was just, in my opinion, and it just, all they wanted to do was basically just do nothing. They were in the period of their life where they just wanted to sit and do nothing. In my head, I almost thought that was a little selfish of them. I'm like, look, that's fine if you're in a transitionary period or trying to find your purpose or this or that, but go and do something. Go out, go experience, go work, go start a project, go start a business. You'll find your passion that way. Go serve other people, go provide value. Don't just sit and meditate for like 4, 5, 6 hours. And keep in mind, this is literally within the same month that I just gone to Nepal to go visit the schools that I'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to build. So, to be honest, I think that was my ego kicking in, looking back at it. It was my ego kicking in. And that kind of draws back to my attachment to what my form of contribution looks like. So my point is, and once again, it's not like this is something I thought about for an entire day or a couple of hours. It's just when the person was talking to me, I was like, dude, just go do something. Like, don't be lazy. Like, in my opinion, they were being lazy by taking time for themselves. And I saw that same person go through absolute hell during the ceremony. It was, I've never seen anything like it. It was almost like, and once again, your journey is your journey, right? You're not meant to look at anyone else. Like, it's a very introspective thing. But when, someone is purging so much, aka they're throwing up, they're like, and they're almost at, once again, you're not meant to talk or shout, or, there might be voices coming out here and there. I say voices, but there might be some sounds you make here and there. But you're not meant to taint anyone else's experience by being very loud. So, it's not like I was purposely looking over, but this person was having a very tough time, and one of the shamans actually stayed with this person this entire time. And, I saw this person go through hell. And there was another piece of information that I found out about them just in terms of their childhood and stuff. And, that was the first lesson that I had during my ayahuasca ceremonies. And I'd say it was one of the most profound, which is just never, ever judge anyone. And as I said, this is coming from someone who assumed they weren't a judgmental person. But I think I'm very judgmental, and I let my ego kick in when it challenges my belief system. As I said, I couldn't care less if someone's gay, straight, if someone wants to have a monogamous relationship, if someone wants to have a polygamous relationship. I don't care. What a person wants to do for work, just long as it's happy and they're happy and it's ethical, I honestly couldn't give less of a shit. Yet I think there's a couple pain points for me where I've been through so much pain in my life. For example, things like work. For example, things like making something of yourself. For example, having people rely on you so heavily that you need to step up and you need to be a leader. Those are things that are so intimately personal and so intimately painful to me that when I see another person, in my opinion, for what my version of stepping up is, that's something that really challenges my core belief system. And I think that's where that judgment came in. So as I said, that experience really made me realize that with 99% of shit, I'm not judgmental at all, but with that 1% that for me, I've gone through so much trauma with, I can be a very judgmental person, and I judge people for their life paths, trying to help course correct when it's not my place, which actually brings me on to point number 2, which is let people find their own way. You know, as a teacher, as a leader, as someone who walks the path to relate to others, this is a very difficult lesson for me. You know, because, for example, you guys know I run a company called, one of my companies is a company called growyouragency.com, and it is the leading education company out there for agency owners. So I have thousands of students, and, you know, I've seen cases before where someone just doesn't want to help themselves. They're not at a point where they want to help themselves. And I've seen it even before, for example, with customer support, you know, where, you know, and once again, all of our customer support is in-house. We don't just have some random person in, you know, Sri Lanka or India. Once again, no offense to those countries, but, you know, a lot of companies out there have customer support reps out there. Like, all of our customer support is in-house. So, you know, I keep a close eye on customer support and making sure that our customer support is as speedy and as efficient as it could be, which over the last 3 months it hasn't been, which is now why I'm back in work mode. That's one of my main focuses, actually. But back to my point. You know, I've seen it before where, you know, students want a refund and they're not eligible to a refund, but I look over their, you know, and their issue is they don't want to help themselves. And, you know, in instances like those, even though I have literally zero obligation to, they've watched the entire course, they've been in the program for 3-4 months, they've literally complained, and you can kind of, and once again, this is, in my entire time running this education company, I've maybe had like 2 or 3 bad apples, you know, out of thousands. So it's very uncommon. You know, it's very, very uncommon. There's a certain person who's drawn to my content, and that's not someone who wants, you know, easy, quick results, you know? So, you know, I will say those are heavy outliers, but I've seen instances like before, and I'm never butthurt about it. You know, if someone doesn't want to help themselves, I'm not butthurt like, oh my God, you came into a program, you used all the content, you came into a program, you used all the content, you know, don't you see the value here, blah, blah. Like, I've realized at a certain point, you just need to cut your losses, you know, and if someone doesn't want to help themselves, there's nothing you can do within your power to help them. You know, and I know that very, very clearly with my education company, very clearly, you know, and that's not something that hurts my feelings or anything like that. And I even know that there have even been, once again, I've been very, very blessed with my agency where we've had an incredible client roster, but there has been a client in the past that comes to mind where they just didn't even want to help themselves. So there's nothing we could have done as a service provider, as the people running traffic. You know, traffic and advertising is one part or one facet of a multifaceted business. So if this person didn't want to help themselves and help their own company and their own business, there was nothing we could do. And I didn't feel butthurt about that. You know, there was no emotional pain associated to that. Yet, you know, when it comes to people like my mom, when it comes to friends of mine, when it comes to you know, a romantic relationship, like when it comes to all that stuff, I always have felt the need to guide people prematurely, even if it's not my place. It's good to keep gently presenting the things that I'm learning and the things that I'm trying out. But, you know, a lot of time I find, and once again, it only came out, and I only realized once I was on this ayahuasca retreat, that I actually, in a lot of ways, push my beliefs down people's throats. And, you know, the key thing that it comes down to, and it was that same first point, which is the only time that I'm ever judgmental is when I believe that a person is not on the right life path And I judge them because in my head, I'm like, oh, you should do this, 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 this. And that comes to the second point, which is, as I said, you need to let people find their own way. Because any time that I've tried to aggressively sort of push my beliefs onto my loved ones, it's from a place of love. I'm a person who doesn't really show much love and appreciation verbally, or for me it comes down to I care so much about the people close to me. Like it's nuts how much I care about the people close to me. And the way that I show that, and sort of my love language, you can call it, is through sort of being in service to them, doing things for them, helping them, making this connection for them, plotting and strategizing, let's go build this incredible life together, as friends, as partners, as a family, let's go and build this ridiculous life together, and a lot of the times I don't realize that, like, you can't help someone who doesn't want to help themselves, or who doesn't want the thing that you're trying to help them with. I know a lot of you guys out here, you might be trying to get your family into entrepreneurship. You might be trying to get your family into meditation, into going to the gym, into healthy eating, into whatever. And keep leading by example. Keep gently pressing, and keep with enthusiasm displaying the benefits of it. But you need to realize at a certain point, you got to let people find their own way. And that's something that's held me back a lot, is just how much time I spend thinking about my loved ones and how I want to help them improve their lives, when, as I said, they may not want the thing that I want for them, or they just may not even want help, full stop. So that was really kind of the second thing that came to me on the second ceremony. The next thing that kind of came to me was, if you really want to be a man, love more. And that's something I've always kind of known. I'm not a cold, stale person, but in a lot of ways I'm not very loving. I don't particularly feel a lot of love, and I think a lot of that comes from hardships that I've had to go through. Has really just made me, has really just hardened me in a lot of ways. So, look, it's all great and well. I've done this, I've accomplished this, I've taken care of however many people, I take care of children halfway across the world with the schools that I've built. Like, yeah, all of that is really, really cool, nice. And if anyone is ever in trouble or has an issue in their life, and I'm not just talking about financially, I'm just talking about, like, I'm having an issue in my relationship, I'm having an issue with this or that, everyone knows I am the person to go to give you the advice that will actually get you the results you want. Even when it comes to relationships, even when it comes to finances, I'm the person that will give you the right answer. The answer that will actually get you what you want. But everyone also knows I'm not the right person when it comes to consoling people and being there for people on an emotional level. Because I guess for me, a lot of times, emotions are there for me, I just don't feel them. It's crazy. Like, you guys know I've had such ridiculous highs in my life, and I've had such ridiculous lows. And both ends of the spectrum, it's there, I know what the emotion is, but I just don't really feel it that much. And it's not always been like this, like at some point, I'm not gonna lie, like I genuinely thought like maybe I'm a sociopath or something, but I know it's not that, because I've had, even like 5-6 years ago, or even 4 years ago, immensely felt every single emotion. So I know it's there. I just think I've been so hardened by certain things that have happened in my life that I've become desensitized to it. So, for me, it gave me a lot to think about with my mom as an example, because yes, at the age of 18, 19, I've retired, 18, 19, 20, kind of basically from the age of 18. Yes, I retired my mom. That's an incredible thing to do. At this stage, and especially, with some stuff happening in the next 3 months, my mom never has to work a day in her life, ever. Like true financial independence, freedom. Like she will never have to work a day again in her life, and she will live a very, very good life. So, you look at it from that aspect, and I'm like, oh, I've done a man's work. I've been there for her. I've pulled us out of, in 2013 or 14, I believe or 2014, I believe it started. We were on government benefits. My mom used to work at NHS. She was a receptionist at the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. I think that paid like £6.50 an hour, something like that. And she was kind of in between jobs here and there. And once again, my mom is a very similar case to me, where it's like, you might look at that and you're like, oh, why was she on government benefits, or why didn't she get a job earlier, or this, that. I'm shocked to this day that my mom doesn't have severe psychological issues. I am so proud of her, the fact that she is still such a fully functioning human after everything she's been through and all the abuse she's been through. So, my mom, to be quite frank, my mom's a fucking G. She's a beast. The fact that she's still healthy, happy, living, she's I don't look at where people are. I look at where they've come from to where they are, and where my mom's come from and everything she's gone through and where she is now as a person. I'm honestly so immensely proud of her. But that's the issue. When was the last time I told her that? When was the last time I told her that? When was the last time I gave her a piggyback? When was the last time I really just put the phone, like turned off work Iman? When was the last time that I realized it's not just like honestly, my mom, it's so funny to see some of the stuff that I give my mom, or some of the stuff I've done for my mom financially. My mom honestly doesn't give a shit. Like, my mom doesn't care that she has a 25,000 pound Rolex on her wrist. My mom doesn't care that she gets to go on this holiday or that holiday. My mom doesn't care about any of the money that I've given her. Like, none of that shit matters to her. I know the thing that puts a smile on her face the most is spending one-on-one quality time with me. And that's the thing that I struggle with the most. So that's where I'm challenged as a man in terms of my own emotional maturity and my own emotional wisdom. Because, when it comes to spending time with my mom, for example, I'm not as present as I should be. I don't make as much of a priority as I should be. And if I look at other areas of my life, and once again, when it comes to, romantically, or when it comes to my friendships or this or that, I'm a man in many, many ways, but I'm a very flawed man in many other ways. So that was kind of another thing that came to me. So this was, and guys, I could keep going on and on and on. I keep going on and on and on and on, but that was the first ceremony kind of wrapped up. And I left the first ceremony, and obviously, we have chance to share with everyone and talk with everyone else after. And, I wouldn't say I was disappointed, because for some reason I kind of expected, I felt as though nothing would happen from the medicine on that first ceremony. For some reason, I just had that gut feeling. But, I was like, okay, that's cool. Nothing really happened. Hopefully something else happens next time. And I actually voice note this entire time. I was voice noting and chatting with Josh. Now, Josh, his YouTube channel is Detox Dudes. He was actually my detox coach, and technically still is. He was my detox coach and is also detox coach for my entire team and my mom. He's actually one of our clients as well. But Josh is an incredible human. And I recommend, he has a video, it's around, this is actually how I first found Josh. It's around an hour and 45 minutes. And, he talks about his story and having to literally teach his friend how to knock him out, basically, make him unconscious so he wouldn't jump off the balcony of his apartment, just so he could just have just some more time on this earth. And, I'm a person who's gone through a lot. I don't really cry much. That video made me cry, because one thing that gets to me is when I see strong men who've been through a lot crying. So, he has an hour and a half video. I strongly recommend you watch that. And as I said, Josh, he was my detox coach. And then from there, we've become really close friends. Really close friends and almost brothers, to be honest. And he is a guy who I have an infinite amount of respect for. He's a guy who's, to be honest, very, very young still. Like I'm young, but he's very, very young. You know, he's 30, 31, and like everything he's gone through, the level of excellence he's accomplished in certain areas of his life, and just the level of compassion. I'd say that's the main thing. Like he is such a strong dude, and just like, you know, you put Josh next to me, and like you think I'm like a little boy compared to him. You know, you guys, I know a lot of you guys think very highly of me, and I appreciate that, and you know, I think highly of myself, and you know, I know I've accomplished a lot, and you know, I really can look myself in the mirror and be very proud of who I am. But like, you put Josh up against me, and like you'll see this guy is a badass man. So this entire time I'm actually chatting with Josh, and you know, I tell him about this first experience, you know, how basically kind of the medicine didn't really do anything, etc., etc. And he was like, look, you need to surrender. And I was telling him, I was like, dude, I was surrendering. Like, you know, one of the big overarching themes is like you have to surrender for the medicine to work. And I was like, dude, I was surrendering. Like there's nothing else I could have done. And he goes, you know, one of the best things you could potentially do is in the second ceremony only have 1 cup of ayahuasca, or 1 cup of the medicine, rather than 2. And, you know, he said, the wisest men get the most knowledge and wisdom from the least amount of medicine. So I went into the second ceremony, and one thing that I actually said, just also to quiet in my mind, was, one thing I said was, and I was repeating this for maybe 3-4 hours going into ceremony, was Mother Ayahuasca, Mother Earth, I believe it was Mother Ayahuasca, Mother Earth, and God, which once again, that whole God thing is something I don't have an opinion on as of yet. You know, that's very much in its infancy. Whether I definitely believe in higher powers for sure. I believe in things like law of attraction. I mean, once you read one of my favorite books that I've literally gotten thousands of you to read since recommending it, Reality Transurfing, I believe there's like really realistically like no way you can't not believe in law of attraction. That thing basically breaks it down through quantum physics at its basics, to be honest. But anyways, back to my point. So I was like, Mother Earth, I was like, Mother Ayahuasca, Mother Earth, God, I am your servant and I will surrender. And like in my opinion, I was like, once again, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. I was like, okay, you know, this is a way for me to just tell Mother Ayahuasca and let her know I'm ready to receive. Whatever it is, I'm ready to receive. And it also was, you know, saying this mantra over and over was a good way to just kind of really clear my brain. So we get into second ceremony, and this time they actually offer rapé first, I believe. Oh wait, did they? Yeah, I think they did. First they offered rapé. So that was amazing because that kind of clears your mind just from the onset, the get-go. And I go up, I have my first cup, and I sit in lotus position. And once again, it takes 30, 40 minutes, and now I'm seeing these patterns on the wall, and I'm closing my eyes. And you know, one thing that I will say is there were literally people there who met God. Like there were people there who met Mother Ayahuasca, and like, you know, there was one guy there, a lot of respect for him. Yeah, just total badass. This French dude who lives in Miami, total badass. But like he had like Mother Ayahuasca like working on him, like performing surgery, and not in a scary way, and performing surgery and replacing old parts of his self-identity that just didn't serve him anymore. So like people had some very like real tangible experiences, and like I really wanted to like swim with the dolphins or some shit like that. Like I wanted some sort of like I don't know, like I wanted some like really cool dope psychedelic experience, like, you know, I was hoping for something like that. And you know, all of my, you know, the little a spoiler alert, none of my experiences were like that at all. Basically, I knew I was in my body the entire time. I knew exactly where I was the entire time. Not once did I hallucinate. So like, yeah, you know, for me, it was really just the wisdom from the experience. And, you know, I'm sure in the future, I'll get my experience where I get to swim with the dolphins, or like, I'd love to be an eagle and fly. Like that would be really dope to me. But either way, I'm sure it'll happen one day. But anyway, so I sit down, and I'm starting to have the effects are kicking in, etc., etc. My mind is quiet. I'm still repeating this phrase: Mother Ayahuasca, Mother Earth, God, I am your servant, and I will surrender. I keep repeating this. I'm saying this. And for some reason, I don't know why, I start going like that. Start going like that, and I start massaging myself. And I have no idea why. And I'm massaging myself, and I start playing with my hair. I start playing with my hair, and I start going, Iman, I love you. Like, I love you, Iman. Like, Iman, I love you. Blah, blah, this, that. And, it's funny, I was talking to Josh when we went to Iceland in October to do a collaboration there. And he was telling me, if you guys don't know Josh's story, he was actually practicing to become a shaman. So the dude, I don't know the exact number, must have done 50, 100 ceremonies in the jungle alone. Very, very scary prospect. But, he was telling me about times where he would just hold himself, he would hold himself and he would just be like, Josh, I love you, I love you, I love you. And, although I understood it, I couldn't really comprehend it, or I couldn't empathize with it. Until my second ceremony. So I started, really massaging myself, and a lot of people had the intention of self-love. That was one of their intentions. And in my opinion, I was like, for me, I was like, I'm never gonna set and that was never my intention. I was like, my intention is never gonna be self-love. Like, of course I love myself. Like, I know my flaws, but I also have a really good opinion I have a good base of what my self-identity is. Like, I respect myself. I look myself in the mirror all the time, and I think I'm a good person, and I'm very proud of what I've done in my life, etc., etc. So never in a million years would I think like, oh, okay, the way this ceremony is gonna go is I'm gonna have self-love. That's kind of what happened. I just started holding myself. I started massaging myself, and I was like, I love you, Iman. I love you. And, the first thing that started popping up in my mind was like, I love you, Iman, because. I love you, Iman, because. I love you, Iman, because you build schools in underdeveloped countries. I love you, Iman, because, you've made millions by the time you're 20. Actually, I was still 19 at that point. By the time you're 19, you've made millions and millions, I love you, man, because you have done this or you've done this. I love you, man, because you're a hard worker. I love you, man, because you've pushed yourself in the gym. I love you, man, because it was always like, I love you because. And I realized, like, why does it have to be conditional? And why does it have to be conditional on the external? Because at the end of the day, like, guys, like, all this shit could be taken could be taken away at any point in my life. All of this shit could be taken away. I'm in a 15,000 or 12,000 pound a month villa right now here in Cape Town, $15,000 a month villa. Like, I don't know, this shit could get taken, something could happen to my business. And yes, I've built a moat around my business. I've built a moat around my finances. I've been smart with my finances. No matter what, to be honest, I'll tell you guys about it in some other videos, with some of my investments and some of my multiple income streams. It's at a point right now where I realistically could never make less than 100K a year. Like, even worst case scenario, that could never feasibly really happen. But then technically all this stuff could be taken away. So I thought about it, and I was like, why does this shit why does it have to be conditional? Like, and I started reframing it. I was like, Iman, like, I love you, Iman, because you always do the right thing. Like, that's my character. That's not something I've done. So I started massaging myself. I'm like, Iman, I love you because you always do the right thing. I've had, and even like yesterday, I had another situation, even in business, like, I've learned so much when it comes to business and life. Like, I'm really starting to see the boy in men, and once again, I'm sorry, I keep referring to boys, men. It's just kind of like in business, like, for example, like in my clients, like 80% have always been men, and like even my students, 80% are men, or I think it's like 76% or something like that. Obviously I'm a man myself, so it's something I think about manhood a lot. But one thing that I've really realized in business and life is, like, a lot of people out there are just, I don't know, they're still boys living in men's bodies. And I thought about it, and I was like, look, Iman, I love you because you became your own man. I love you because I never had a dad in my life. My real dad was an alcoholic, abusive, so he wasn't in my life. My stepdad did way more. He was technically I had a dad, but he was my stepdad. I only saw him, 3 months out of the year, and the times that I saw him, he did deep, deep psychological damage, which once again, I'm trying to figure out where in my life it's manifesting, because as far as I can tell, it hasn't had an effect on me, when really anyone who's gone through that in their life should have very, very, very deep psychological problems. So I thought about it, I was like, Iman, I love you because you became your own man. I love you because you always do the right thing. Iman, I love you because you push yourself. I love you because you're always trying to find the truth, even if it hurts. Like, I reframed all this conditional stuff. And, a paradigm above that is like, it should be like unconditional love. Like, technically I should just love myself for existing. I'm not at a point right now in my life where I'm enlightened enough, or I'm wise enough to just love myself for like existing, But as I said, right now, at least I evolved from like, I love myself because I did or accomplished this, to I love myself because take away all the shit I have in my life. I look myself in the mirror, and to be honest, I don't think a lot of people can do this. I look myself in the mirror every single night, and I know I push myself. I always do the right fucking thing, and like constantly life tests me, and especially the past 3-4 months, I've had a lot of, and maybe only like 2, 3, 4 people in my life know this, but like I've had, some people know some of the other stuff, but like I've had 5 or 6 things happen to me in the last 3-4 months, which really tested my manhood. And there was really a lot of things in the past 3-4 months where I could have acted maliciously, and there was some stuff which were more tragic. There was some stuff which were more sinister, involving other people that, quite frankly, I considered family. And there were instances with people, to be honest, where at the end of the day, I know long term, life always gives you what you deserve. But there have also been instances in the past where I've been more foolish and done things and used my resources and power to lash out and just protect my fort. And there have been, and as I said, over the past 3-4 months, there have been a couple instances where to be honest, I could have used my resources and power to, quite frankly, destroy someone's life. And part of me is happy that I have that in my, because I think at the end of the day, you can't just be a walking flower. If someone fucks with you, and they fuck with you quite a few times, you got to protect your fort. And I know that I can protect my fort, but there were a couple instances where I feel as though I made the wiser decision, and I decided not to fight fire with fire. And there were also instances in the past 3 months, which you saw very publicly, which you guys know, where I decided to fight fire with fire, where I decided to address lies, wrongdoing, quite frankly, just deceit, when I should have just realized in my head that, like, just like has happened tons and tons of times in the past in my life, people just get what they deserve. And like life will teach the person a lesson. It's not my job. So as I said, life keeps testing me, and I'd say 80-90% of the time I do the right thing, and 10-20% of the time I don't, and I learn from that. And because of all that, I can really look myself in the mirror every night, and I can know that I'm on my path, I'm on my journey, and I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty damn proud of the way I conduct myself and the way that I carry myself with things. So that was kind of the main theme of the second ceremony. It's funny, I left the second ceremony and I sent a voice note to Josh straight away, and I was like, I just had so, because Josh was like, we're basically like brothers. Like, I already had a ton of respect for him, but like after that ceremony, I was like, oh wow, like I had so much newfound respect for him for like, the way that, how he would take care of himself, the self-love he would go through, or like, we'd even be like, he stayed at my place in London in November. It's crazy because like, even just little things, like we would be at a restaurant and, he'd be deciding, okay, do I want to have a glass of wine? Because he obviously doesn't drink basically ever, Very, very, very rarely will he drink, but he was deciding, did he want to have a glass of wine? Or like, I remember when we were in Iceland and I was having a steak and he was going to join me. And, he was just trying to decide whether to have the steak or not. In my head, I'm just like, okay, I weigh up the pros, the cons, this is that. And like, for me to come to a decision and to kind of lean on my intuition on sort of life decisions that I don't think are as important. Look, when it comes to a serious life decision, I will lean on my intuition. I'll think about things. I'll mull over things. But like, am I gonna have a glass of wine? Am I gonna have a steak? Like, these isolated incidents. I just kind of quickly figure out the pros and cons in my head. Like, what day is it? Do I have work tomorrow? How far away from sleep is it? How much work do I have on at the moment? Like, just a lot of things like that. Whereas Josh would take freaking 2 minutes. Like a minute, 2 minutes to not only decide, but go into his body and like feel it out and then decide. And I, at that time, once again, I understand everything he's been through, and that guy's been through a lot. And he has to lean on his intuition because of all of his previous health issues. But like, so I understood it, but in my head, I'm just like, I didn't get it, and after the second ceremony, I totally understood, all the self-love that Josh practices for himself. I totally understood, really trusting your intuition and all of that. So yeah, that was kind of the theme of the second ceremony. Now going into the third ceremony, my intentions were, I wanted to kind of keep going on the idea of self-love. I also wanted to totally relinquish any vices that I have. For me, in my life, for example, like the first 6 months of 2019, I basically didn't have a sip of alcohol. I basically, like, my caffeine was low. I was basically getting 9 hours of sleep every night. Like, I'm a person who, when it comes to it, like, I don't really have any vices that take over me. Like, I don't really do drugs, although I've done pretty much every single drug in the past. I don't really do drugs. I don't smoke weed. I just want to go to bed if I smoke weed. I don't really have too many vices when I put my mind to it. For example, the summer of 2019, I drank way more alcohol than I really should have. But it was also a conscious decision that, I'm just gonna let loose and like, what? If I'm with friends, I'm gonna share a bottle of rosé and I'm gonna have a calamari and I'm gonna enjoy myself. So, I made those sort of conscious decisions, but nonetheless, I kind of wanted to address maybe any of the vices that I have. Obviously, my business is attention, it's social media. We basically, what we do for our clients is we take the attention that Facebook and Google have collected that they sell to us, and then we use that attention to get our clients more customers. I collect attention by providing value to you guys for the education company, and in return that gives you an insight into the value that I can provide and the value that the company and the product can provide. So my life's kind of around social media. I mean, basically is. So that's another vice that I kind of wanted to maybe just have a stronger control over. And once again, other things, I wanted to tap into my community, give myself credit for all the hard work I put in. A lot of time I don't realize, like my life is so crazy sometimes, just the amount of, I've had so many people tell me that, I just like, I almost feel like embarrassed or nervous saying this or uncomfortable saying this. Like, I've had so many people tell me that they are literally on this earth still because of me, because of the experiences that I've gone through, because of what I've gone through growing up and how honest and raw I am about it. I've had, every day I get messages of people telling me about all the clients that they've signed, that they're finally making 10K a month now. Literally, I'm out here in Cape Town at the moment. 2 days ago, the first night that I went out, I had one of my subscribers, one of my followers, like, we bumped into each other going out. Then I think the second time I went out, I had one of my students who's making 28K a month now, and we met. He actually bumped into my videographer Pete, and then Pete brought him to the table, and we said hi, and he actually showed me all of his billables, and showed me proof he was making 28K a month, and it was just like, and I told him, okay, you're staying with me the rest of the night, and he joined me and like 20 of my friends, and we drank and we had fun and we partied, etc. But just like, a lot of time I really don't give myself credit for what I do for other people. So that's something I wanted to tap into going into day 3 ceremony. And once again, Mother Ayahuasca has a funny way of going with things. That's not what happened at all. What happened at all in ceremony 3 was I played with my son. And this feels like a real Drake moment here, because I have something to tell you guys. I actually have no, I'm just fucking with you. I don't have a son. I don't have a son. I don't plan on having one anytime soon. I don't plan on having children anytime soon. But for some reason, ceremony 3, I played with my son. And, I held him in my arms. I told him I loved him. We played football. I told him, I taught him life lessons. And I'm just looking over my notes here. It was just incredible. And I looked at my son, and I don't think I've ever had more love in my heart for anything or anyone than when I looked at my son. My son must have been 6 or 7 years old. It was just that for me, it was a surreal experience. It was a very, very surreal experience. And my son taught me how to be a child again. And, that was just, it was just incredible. And I played with my son for, maybe 4 or 5 hours. And, my mom was a grandma, and, all this meant a lot to me. And, I am so, so excited for fatherhood. Now, that's not to say that it's going to happen anytime soon. I intend on having kids way, way, way later down the line. But, I think, to be honest, every single child, every single child has that in them. Well, they go usually one of two ways. Either if you have had absentee parents or parents that have, kind of fucked you up growing up, you end up being a fucked up parent, or you're like, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to make sure I do it right this time. And obviously everything that happened with, my real dad, my real dad didn't really affect me because he wasn't there. But to be honest, I'm glad he wasn't there, because he was alcoholic abusive. At least my mom had the strength to end it with him before I was born. To be honest, that's a blessing. But, my stepdad being half an absentee father, half just a genuine psychopath. And I think kind of more recently I've come to admit the ways that it's kind of fucked me up more than I thought. And, even my mom in a lot of ways is literally my best friend, my best friend, I have so much respect and admiration for that woman. But kind of leading up to the age of, I'd say maybe 8 or 9, even with her, she's made a couple mistakes and done some things which, aren't probably the best way to go about raising a son, which she's, talked to me about, and I've forgiven her for. But anyways, my point is, I am so damn excited for fatherhood. Not anytime soon. Don't worry, Mom. I'm so excited to be a dad one day, and that was just such an incredible experience. And that kind of wrapped up my 3rd ceremony. So there's a lot of other things that happened. I saw Bailey. So for those of you guys who don't know Bailey is my mom. I got my mom a dog earlier in 2019 for her birthday. Just because she needed a best friend, she needed a guardian angel. She needed someone there to make her smile and be happy. I got my mom this dog, Bailey. Literally the most handsome, he's just such a bundle of joy. And unfortunately, he passed away end of November, very, very prematurely. I still have beliefs that he passed away. He came into our life at the right time, and he passed away at the right time. And for those of you guys who know me personally will know what that means. And I also have beliefs that, for example, I don't believe in reincarnation. That's just, once again, there's so much shit in my life that maybe my opinion my opinion will change one point. But I am certain that Bailey is still alive. So I'm certain that dog is still alive, and when, in a few years, when my mom's ready and she gets another dog, I'm certain he will have the soul and the essence of Bailey. Yeah, that dog was something else. But anyway, so that happened. There was a lot of, I just saw a lot of my like loved ones, and there was like a lot of honorary mentions, and there was like a lot of like there's just so much to decompress. But I've tried to kind of give you guys the brass tacks. I've tried to give you guys just kind of the main takeaways. Now, for those of you guys watching this, would I recommend ayahuasca to you? To be honest, for most people, in an environment where I was in on the retreat, it's so safe, and there were people who had such dark spirits and demons. And although maybe the first ceremony or the second ceremony was so tough, everyone left that experience with such a deep understanding of like just those. It's such an understanding of those deep dark aspects of their psyche, which day to day you're just so shut off from it, from that side of you. And I don't care, even if you meditate for 30 minutes a day, an hour a day, it's so hard to tap into those aspects of you. So you know what, I'm really not gonna recommend or tell you guys what to do. All I will say is, for me, it's definitely going to be a yearly occurrence. It's going to be something I'm going to be doing yearly. I think it's good to have the reset, the refresh yearly, and you know, just take a moment back and take a step back and assess and see what direction you're going in. So yeah, you know, I'm very, very grateful for my ayahuasca ceremony or my ayahuasca experience. I'm very, very grateful to my client for, you know, suggesting that I come and, you know, opening up that invitation to me. It's something that I'm going to continue to do as probably a yearly ritual, as a reset, and to kind of get back to my core and really look at what I'm doing in my life and going, is that really who you want to be, or is that what you want to do, or is that, you know, like I even assessed, it's funny, there was one point I even assessed the education company. For 2 hours, I legitimately was like adamant that I would shut down the education company and that I would just run the fashion company, my fashion company, Gadzhi, and the agency. You know, the agency is the real cash cow, meticulous, finely tuned machine, and the clothing line is like my creative output. Because I was just like, you know, I was like, you know, why do I need all this like attention in my life and like this social stuff and this and that and the nightmare of like the education company? Because the thing is, I don't have like, Grow Your Agency isn't a course business. It's a real education company. Like it's so multifaceted and there's so much to think about operationally. And, you know, even just little things like that, like I questioned that for such a large part of the experience. And by the end I came back to it and I'm like, Iman, education was what set you free. Like I'm a high school dropout. I may not have finished school, but education was what set me free. And the fact that I am able to walk the path and relay it to all of my customers, all of my students, and really just like, once again, I don't give myself enough credit for how many thousands of lives I've changed through my program, how many people have put in their notice on their jobs, how many people are making six figures, how many people are making multiple six figures. We even have a few 7-figure a year students right now. So, you know, I feel as though I really just don't give myself enough credit. And that's one of the beautiful things about ayahuasca is, you know, I feel as though every single year, it's a good chance for me to just reset and look at my life and ask myself, you know, am I really happy with what I'm doing? And all my businesses I'm proud of, we do to a ridiculous level. Actually, to be honest, sometimes I question how I've been able to conduct each company and keep it at such an amazing standard and a level of service and product. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you stuck around to this point, you're an incredible human. I have great respect for you. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed seeing a little bit of the raw aspects of my psyche. There was some stuff that, just to be entirely honest, I didn't talk about here, just because, you know, there's certain stuff that should be left private. There's certain people I didn't mention explicitly, just because, once again, there's certain things I think should be left private. But nonetheless, I hope you guys enjoyed. And once again, I commend you for sticking around until the end. And let me know in the comments, have you had any experiences with any sort of psychedelics, any sort of any sort of mind altering substances, not for the purpose of fun or partying, or maybe just even like doing some shrooms with some friends, like really for the purpose of transformational growth. If you feel comfortable sharing that, let me know down below, and let me know what your experience was like. I'd be very, very interested to hear. So one last thing, make sure you smash that like button. It's funny, during my ayahuasca retreat, as I said, one of the ceremonies, I was genuinely thinking like, I'm gonna shut down the education company. And if I sound like a broken record, you guys, I've told you guys this before, like, although I did that, you know, that crazy launch for Agency Incubator, like, you know, I don't enjoy social media, you know, I don't enjoy social media, to be honest. Like, I actually quite like having a private life and, you know, not sharing everything I'm doing and just being able to be present to the moment and this and that. So if it seems like a broken record where I talk about the education company, it's because that is the thing that is, yes, I built a very profitable business from that, but it's the thing that takes up so much energy, time. It takes up so much emotional capital, physical capital, just so much of my energy, that is kind of the reason that sometimes I tussle with it, is because you can ask anyone, the way that they serve the world the most is also the thing that sometimes they resent, because they have to give so much of themselves to make it happen. So on that note, I'm trying to get to 300,000 YouTube subscribers this year. I'm actually finally starting to focus on SEO, ranking, all that stuff. Go ahead and smash the like button. It really, really helps out the YouTube algorithm. And let's get to 300,000 YouTube subscribers this year. Much love, and I'll see you guys next time.